Привет. Ам, Привет. Добро пожаловать. Я англичанин. Мой родной язык английский язык, но я хотел дать вам помочь, если, если ты изучаешь английский язык, если ты русский человек, который изучает английский язык, я могу дать вам помочь. И в моем видео сегодня я собираюсь читать научные американские журнал, как выглядишь, по-английски, и включите subtitles, включите subtitles, и тогда ты можешь видеть переводчик via YouTube, переводчик via YouTube. Очень отличные переводчики, как выглядишь. И давай начнем. Я собираюсь читать один интересная статья, и тоже первая страница, как выглядишь, я могу читать. Я умею читать. Я умею читать все журнал, но давай начнем прямо сейчас один статья на сегодня. So, Scientific American, Dark Universe, Mysterious Cosmic Phenomenon Shape Reality Itself, Special Edition. Voids of emptiness in space, dark stars and ultra-faint galaxies. How to measure the weight of nothing, black holes from the beginning of time. What is dark energy? And there's the magazine, the first page. Let's open. And we're going to go to an article. I might as well just do this one, I guess. Let's start with this article. And then in the future videos, I'll do more articles from this magazine. From the editor, all the darkness, sorry, let me start again. From the editor, all the darkness we cannot see. Humans have always looked to the stars. Those pinpricks of light in the vast blackness spark curiosity, wonder, and awe. Our newest orbiting observatory, the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST in brackets, launched in 2021 and is sending back jaw-dropping images of visible and infrared light from galaxies, star nursery nebulas, and supermassive stars. More than 25 years ago, astrophysicists discovered that rather than slowing down as it expands, the universe is in fact speeding up. Some invisible force between the points and clusters of light is making the universe careen off in every direction. And then it says page 4 in brackets. The cosmos is brimming with this so-called dark energy and other mysterious phenomena. The empty vacuum of space is alive with exotic particles flashing in and out of existence. Page 14 in brackets. Some of them, whether so-called WIMPs, WIMPs, axions, or other as yet undiscovered particles, may be the invisible dark matter pulling galaxies together. Page 26 in brackets. Some stars might be fueled by the annihilation of dark matter. Some stars might be fueled by the annihilation of dark matter itself. And then in brackets it says page 34. And then here it says, the darkest places we know of are undoubtedly black holes. And then there are sprawling voids in space, some hundreds of millions of light years across, whose emptiness scientists think is the ideal zone for studying less understood particles, each as for whose emptiness. Sorry, let me start again because I screwed up that one sentence. Whose emptiness scientists think is the ideal zone for studying less understood particles such as neutrinos. Page 38 in brackets. Some galaxies are made primarily of dark matter and contain very few stars. Stranger still, earlier this year, astronomers reported the discovery of a galaxy emitting a radio signal but hardly any visible light. In brackets, page 46. The darkest places we know of are undoubtedly black holes. Their gravitational hearts devour all light, and scientists suspect that the space inside black holes is stretchy and could grow forever, page 70 in brackets, or connect to other black holes through wormholes in space-time, page 74 in brackets. The existence of black holes was first hypothesized by Albert Einstein, but it took a century to capture an image of one, and even that image is of just a fiery ring of matter wrapping around the penumbra. Sorry, that's a new word. Even I'm sure even people who are native English speakers would agree that penumbra is not a common English word. It's a new word even for English speakers. So, sorry. Let me repeat that again. The existence of black holes was first hypothesized by Albert Einstein, but it took a century to capture an image of one, and even that image is of just the fiery ring of matter wrapping around the penumbra of the event horizon. The black hole remains faceless, and it says page 88 in brackets. The explanations for these dark phenomena may be found in points of light. JWST has spotted bulky galaxies from the early days after the Big Bang. Their existence could signal a potential alternative way for black holes to form. Page 102. One of the more mind-bending hypotheses in cosmology is that our universe could be a holographic projection of a lower dimension. Page 108 in brackets. I really like that last sentence, so I'm going to repeat it for emphasis. One of the more mind-bending hypotheses in cosmology is that our universe could be a holographic projection of a lower dimension. Actually, let me repeat it a third time for emphasis. One of the more mind-bending hypotheses in cosmology is that our universe could be a holographic projection of a lower dimension. Page 108 in brackets. This concept has led to new ideas about black holes and the early universe. Space-time itself may not be an inherent feature of the universe. Instead, it could arise from a more basic framework of the cosmos. Instead, it could arise from a more basic framework of the cosmos, page 94 in brackets, and Nobel Prize winning physicists have shown that our reality is not necessarily real, page 60 in brackets. Humans peer at the stars, yes, but we are limited by our eyes, perceiving only 0.0035% of the electromagnetic. Let me repeat again, sorry. Humans peer at the stars, yes, but we are limited by our eyes, perceiving only 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't see radio waves, X-rays, or heat. Let me repeat again. We can't see radio waves, X-rays, or heat, never mind other forces such as gravity or magnetism, but innovative technology is allowing us to understand some of the unseen. The totality is mostly still hidden from us in darkness. but that doesn't mean we'll stop looking. So now let me just explain really quickly. And by the way, just remind you, turn on subtitles, please, if you didn't turn on subtitles. So now I'm just going to flip through the magazine. I'm not going to read the entire magazine, but I'm just going to flip through the magazine so that people can kind of see the magazine. And then I'm going to slowly explain also why I'm doing this. So I learned the Russian language. I've been studying the Russian language for years because I love space and astronomy. And unfortunately, when I was growing up in Canada, Canada doesn't appreciate scientists and mathematicians, not like other countries do, not like the Germans, right? So I was always fascinated with World War II and the Germans and with their technology that the Germans had. But I always wanted to find science and mathematics and use it for good, right? And so I've always wanted to study science and mathematics and use it for good. Unfortunately, I was severely bullied growing up in Canada, and a part of me always got along better with foreigners. I always got along better with foreigners. And when I was in high school and college, Canadian students would bully me and they would not work with me in a group assignments. So especially in college, I would work with the foreign students. I would work with, I would work with Chinese international students. I would work with Russian international students. I would work with Indian international students. I would work with Korean international students and even Iranian international students. And so, for that reason, I have always gotten along better with foreigners, and I always worked with them in group assignments in college. So, this is what led me to start studying Russian professionally. Well, I didn't study Russian in university. I studied something else in university and college, but I decided to study Russian also on the side, using various YouTube videos, using apps, language learning apps, and stuff like that. Like, for example, Rosetta Stone and Duolingo. And I've been studying Russian now for years because I've always wanted to be a scientist and mathematician. But I probably always realized that I wouldn't probably work for the United States because of one, because I'm from Canada, and two, because Americans have not always, treated Canadians with respect, and Americans also have bullied me, especially when I tried going to the States, and then they accused me of being a Canadian spy. So I was in the States. I did visit the United States of America, and I was from Canada. I was a Canadian tourist. I was just a Canadian tourist, and the Americans accused me of being a Canadian spy from Canada, accused me of trying to spy on the United States, just because I went to some key areas that were, I didn't know that they were prohibited. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know that there were certain government buildings in the United States that were off limits to Canadians. And I thought that Canada and the United States were supposed to be allies. So I figured the Americans wouldn't mind if a Canadian went around with a camera taking pictures. And I was just a Canadian tourist. I was just a Canadian tourist. And then the Americans grabbed me and they beat me up. The Americans beat me up. And I had a horrible experience when I visited the United States. And I would, as a Canadian tourist, I would never visit the United States ever again, especially after the Americans falsely accused me of being a spy. I don't know why the Americans would have thought that I was a spy, but anyways, so I would definitely never work for NASA, which is the National Aeronautics Space Administration. I would never work for NASA. Uh, I probably wouldn't honestly work for Russia either because just based on what's happening with Russia and the war, I don't think Russia would trust Canadians, honestly. I don't think, especially after after I had that issue in the United States, I kind of have a fear of traveling altogether, anywhere, really. I have a fear of traveling anywhere, really, after what the Americans did to me, after the Americans falsely accused me of being a Canadian spy, after the Americans beat me up. I just kind of am reluctant to travel anywhere, to be honest. So even though Russia might have treated me with respect, even though the Russians may have embraced me because they like scientists and mathematicians, honestly, I just don't feel like traveling again. I want to stay home where it's safe. and I don't want to get beat up by those Americans because those Americans were really nasty and mean to me. And I actually was downplaying. I was sugarcoating the story because I didn't want it's too traumatic to explain all the details. So basically, long story short, the Americans abused me severely, accused me of being a Canadian spy, and the Americans attacked me. So that's why I would never work for the Americans, for NASA, for the National Aeronautics Space Administration. But I am still open minded to working with people around the world. I just want to do it online for a while. I don't feel comfortable going to another country just yet until unless that country provides me with a visa and tells me that they're going to treat me with respect. I did go to the United States legally. I went to the United States as a tourist, which is legal. Canadians are allowed to visit the United States as a tourist, and I visited the United States as a Canadian tourist. So I did go to the United States perfectly legally. Um, but next time I go to a country, I would rather go to a country for work and not just as a tourist. And at least if I get some kind of work visa, then I feel I have some sort of, assurance from the country that they're going to treat me with respect because I'm an employee of the country. So if Russia ever issued me a work permit, or if Germany ever issued me a work permit, or for example, if North Korea or Iran ever issued me a work permit, then I would consider. But I honestly don't think that's going to happen because, I'm a scientist and I'm a mathematician and I'm already kind of out there. I'm an out there thinker, kind of like Albert Einstein, although I am not as brilliant as Albert Einstein. I'm definitely not as brilliant as Nikola Tesla. So, but just to even be a fraction of one of those guys would be a great accomplishment. That is why, basically, that's why I do what I do. I study Russian, I study science and mathematics, and I'm just in it for the science. I'm in it for the learning. I'm in it for, I just want that a nice job. I want to get a really good job. Right now, I just work at a bookstore part time, but I would love to work as a scientist one day. I would love to work as a mathematician, even just to do anything in science, even just to do something science related, like being like a science journalist or something. That would be cool as well. So I just want to work in science and mathematics in the future. And right now I just work part time at a bookstore, but in the future, I would love to get a job in science and mathematics, doing something, anything really. And oh, that's interesting. Let's read this. Doing science is never just about calculations, observations, and experiments. It is also about working collaboratively with other people, including policymakers. See, so yeah, so I am a very much a team player, and in the past I was bullied by bullies, and it kind of irks me when I see Trump say that he's been bullied, and I don't really know if that's true because a lot of times the bullies, the real bullies, will pretend to be the victims when they're not the victims. So, scientists have spied. Okay, let's read this. Interesting. Scientists have spied signs of what might be dark matter powered stars in the depths of the celestial region studied by the James Webb Space Telescope, advanced deep extra ex, at okay, let me studied by the James Webb Space Telescope Advanced Deep Extragalactic Survey JADES, a portion of which is pictured here. Really cool. So, I'm going to wrap this up and I'm just going to finish what I was saying. So, basically, what I was getting at was the Americans were really nasty to me. And generally speaking, the Americans, I mean, I kind of agree with the Americans because in the sense of like how they disagree with Canada's politics. I agree with that. I don't agree with Canada's politics. I didn't vote for the Canadian government. I didn't vote for Justin Trudeau. I did not vote for that French Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I didn't vote for him. So I agree with the Americans when they criticize Canada and criticize Canadian politics. But just because I'm Canadian doesn't mean that I voted for that garbage, that garbage Canadian political system. I didn't vote for the garbage. I didn't vote for that. So for Americans, And I explained that to Americans when I was in the United States. I explained that to Americans. But when you come across thugs, they were thugs. They were thugs. They were bullies. And when they're bullies, they don't care if you're a good person or not. They're going to bully you because they like bullying people. And they bullied me. The Americans bullied me. So, of course, not all Americans are bad, but I just had a bad experience with a lot of them that were bullies. And, for that reason, I would never go back to the United States. And, unfortunately, with Russia, just for the fact Russia might be actually a really great country where they respect you and they appreciate you. However, for the fact that I had such a bad experience in the United States, I just don't want to travel just yet for a while. I'm scared of traveling. So I'm just going to slowly build a relationship with people around the world and with Russian scientists. I want to connect with Russian scientists and mathematicians. And the next time I go to a new country, it's because I'll have a work permit and I'll be doing something in science and mathematics. Um, or even just to work at a bookstore in another country. I currently work at a bookstore part time, and I don't mind. I love books. I love reading. I love reading Russian novels. I'd love to work at a Russian library, for example, in Russia. And I'd even take a part time job, maybe making pizza or working at a coffee shop. I don't care. I would love it. I would love to be in Russia would be just amazing, and I would be happy. I'd take a job anywhere, working at a bookstore, working at a coffee shop, or even working in the Kremlin, working for the FSB, the Federalная служба безопасности. I don't care. I'd do anything. I'd work any job really, just to be able to work in science and mathematics. Even if it's just to be a science journalist, to report on science and mathematics, that would also be cool. So, thank you for coming to my live stream today. I hope you turned on the subtitles because it was important to watch the subtitles. And this was a really interesting magazine. It's a really cool science magazine. I'm going to do more videos in the future where I talk about science and mathematics. And I also speak Russian and I speak English. And thank you for coming. And that's all for right now.